Why, hello there. I'm assuming that you're here today because you've heard of the modes and you're just a little bit confused as to what they are specifically and how exactly they work in music. So I'm going to be explaining all of that today. Real quick, before we get started, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Aaron Cloutier. I am a musician and a music educator. I have been teaching in-home lessons, online lessons, and within music schools for the last 13 years. More often than not, I get questions from my students asking about what the modes are because there's a lot of mystery associated with the modes. And my goal today is just to arm you with the information to be able to understand what they are, how they're made, and how you can implement them in your own music, whether it's as a soloist or as a songwriter. If you stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to be sharing with you my 3 favorite modes and one quick little trick to kind of string together all 3 patterns across the neck. So let's get into it. So in essence, a mode is basically a reinterpretation of an existing scale. Let's take a C major scale, for example. If you play all the white keys on the piano from a C to a C, you have a C major scale as shown here. So what would happen then if you played the same white keys, but instead of starting on a C, you started on a D? So if you start on a D and end on D, you are left with these notes: D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. So you are now left with what is known as a mode of the major scale. This one in particular is known as D Dorian. It starts on a D and ends on a D, and yet it incorporates all of the exact same notes as found in the C major scale. It's using the exact same notes as you can see, but it is starting from a different point in the scale, so therefore you have a completely different sounding scale using the exact same notes. In other words, same notes, different order. We're going to get into that more in a little bit, but first I want to just take a second and talk about the names of the modes themselves, okay? So they are as follows. We have Ionian, we have Dorian, we have Phrygian, we have Lydian, we have Mixolydian, we have Aeolian, and Locrian. All of which have their own specific sound, their own specific flavor, and there's a specific mood that's attached with them. So like I said before, each mode has its own specific flavor, its own specific sound. These are all a video in themselves, but for the sake of time, I just want to keep it very simple and just label it as such. So the Ionian, the Lydian, and the Mixolydian modes are major modes, so they're more happy sounding and sometimes quirky and sometimes a little ethereal, depending on what mode we're talking about. And then the Phrygian, the Dorian, and the Aeolian modes are the minor modes. So they're a lot more dark, they're a lot more sad, and a lot more melancholy. And then finally, we have the Locrian mode, which is a diminished mode. So that's the, the creepiest, most dissonant sounding of the modes. So 7 different flavors, all in the same bag of notes. So just to reiterate, the way that modes are built, right? If you want to think of it as building, is you just take any note in the scale, start from that note, and then spell out the entire scale using all of the notes in that scale. Can I say scale any more times right now? Let me be specific. So if we have the C major scale again, right, and we want to spell an E Phrygian mode, right, we're going to start on the 3rd note E, right? So from there, we spell the rest of the scale, but we also have to get all the way back to E. So in other words, it has to go from E to E using all of the notes in the key of C. And the only thing to keep in mind is that they have to follow alphabetical order. So in this case, we have E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and E. So if you are, on the piano right now, just go back to those white keys and play an E to an E. You will hear how this succession of notes is far different from a C major scale, and yet it's holding all of the notes inside the C major scale. It's just, again, a reinterpretation of that same stream of notes. It's just a different order. You can do this 7 times. There's 7 different flavors in this one bag of Skittles, you know what I'm saying? It's super cool. So that's another important thing to keep in mind, is that it can't just be like you're taking all these notes and just dumping them out and just rearranging them. They have to follow alphabetical order no matter what, because we're still dealing with major scales here. So it still follows those rules that I was talking about of like spelling major scales and whatnot. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out that video. It's floating on my channel here somewhere. It's really simple though. You just start on any of the notes, you spell out the scale in alphabetical order, no matter what note you start on, and that's how you get your mode. Let's try it with F. So you have F, right? And we want to get from F to F using all of the notes in the C major scale. So the way we do that, we start with F, go to G, from G to A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E, and then finally E to F. So we have F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. That's going to be the Lydian mode. So if you're still confused, I'd like to just offer you up an analogy in hopes that this makes things a little bit more clear. I'm a pretty visual learner, so hopefully this will help you if you're anything like me. But imagine that you have 7 marbles, right? And each of the marbles has a letter on it. They're all the same letters in the C major scale. So you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C, right? So you put the marbles in the bag and you shake up the bag and all of a sudden you just dump them out on the floor. Okay, so that's not a mode. That's not a scale either. There needs to be some order here. So you need to be able to put these in order. So let's say you just reach down and you select one random marble, and let's just say it's a B, right? Okay, so you have your B. You have to spell in alphabetical order the rest of the scale starting from B. So the way that you do that, you go from B to C to D to E to F to G to A, all the way back to B. That little arrangement of marbles there, well, in this case, it's going to be the Locrian mode, but it's a rearrangement of the original order of notes, that C major scale, okay? Like I've said before, you can do this 7 times, so you get 7 different flavors out of that same bag of marbles, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so we're finally here, and let's talk about how to actually use them. So you see them a lot in forums and videos. There's guys that talk about how to just shred the modes and all that sort of stuff, and you totally can, because these particular modes yield specific patterns that allow you to kind of travel up and down the neck and across the neck if you want to. I personally love using them to write melodies. I get, interesting melody ideas from just kind of simplifying things and just focusing on the defining characteristics of each mode. So for example, here's a rough example of a melody that I wrote using the Lydian mode. So here's a little improvisation that I did using the A Dorian mode. As promised, I wanted to show you guys my 3 favorite modes and the patterns associated with it, and a cool way to kind of tie them all together across the neck. Plus, how you can kind of finagle your way to using the same pentatonic scale shape to tie these 3 modes together as well. This was a bit that I stole from Scott Henderson, and if you don't know who he is, you should definitely check him out. He's a brilliant guitar player, musician, instructor. Check him out. So here it is, enjoy. I tend to gravitate towards minor modes, and this is a really cool way actually to string them all together. I'm gonna be using modes in the key of B flat major. So I'm gonna start with C Dorian. Now, if C is here, then the 3rd mode is going to be D. So we have D Phrygian. Okay. Now, what's also cool is that you can go back and find the Aeolian mode. If you want to go in order, it's good to learn this way, but just for the sake of using this to kind of memorize these minor modes first, we have Dorian, we have Phrygian, and then we have Aeolian down here, so we have G minor. So I'm gonna play a backing track in C Dorian, and hopefully you can hear how all of these modes are tied together. So what's really cool is that if you omit 2 notes from each minor mode, you can actually use your root position pentatonic scale in all 3 positions across the neck. So if we omit 2 notes from each mode, we have these shapes still. Like this is the tried and true, root position pentatonic minor scale. We can use this in 3 different places on the neck. So this is what I'm stealing from Scott Henderson. Look up Scott Henderson pentatonic approach to modes. I'm sure you'll find it somewhere, but he's a Berklee instructor. He's brilliant. Go check him out. But anyway, I was basically filling in the notes here taken from his lesson where he was just using pentatonic scales as an example to play this same shape in 3 different areas on the neck and still be in key. So just for the sake of showing you guys, and then from there you can start to, filling in the gaps, you know what I mean? Anyway, this is great because you can use the pentatonic scale shape as a template of sorts and begin to experiment with switching between the pentatonic scale and whatever specific mode it is outlining. So, for example, experimenting with swapping notes in the C Dorian mode with the C minor pentatonic scale. This alone can lead to a lot of great creative ideas due to the stripped down nature of the pentatonic scale. Because it is so simple, it lends itself to creating melodies easily. and add on to that the color of whatever mode that you're using, and you're off to the races. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully this is starting to make a little bit more sense to you. If you're interested in exploring using the root position pentatonic scale shape across all 3 minor modes, I went ahead and tabbed out all the examples shown in this video. You're welcome to grab that in the link in the description for free. It's just my way of saying thanks for checking out the video. It means a lot. I really appreciate it. And if you happen to have any questions regarding the modes, definitely let me know in the comments. Have you started learning about this and you just felt like you've hit a wall? Like, what are your frustrations with the modes? Let me know. Thanks.